Then I'd like to introduce our second speaker of the day, Kris Voorspoels. He is Director of Products and Solutions within the global OPSWAT organization. He specializes in assisting critical infrastructure and government clients with the implementation of robust airgap security solutions. Being in the field since the beginning of this millennium, right after we countered the Y2K bug with the human race, specializing in navigating the complexities of IT and OT digital transformations, he's the perfect speaker to talk about air-gapped environments, network segmentation, while still being able to combine this with not only a small thing, but full network detection and response. Please welcome Kris with a big virtual round of applause and listen to him talk about protecting bidirectional data flows with NDR in secure networks. Time to go wild in this chat. Welcome to stage, Kris. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. It's my big pleasure and honor to come and speak and present here during the QCTR of Connect and Share of CCB. So I will dive right into it, I think, right? So today I'm speaking about protecting bidirectional data flows with NDR in secure networks. Let's see if I can move. Okay, so let's start with a little bit of history. Okay, so if you think back in history, networks in the early days, they got implemented as flat networks. Think around the 1990s and the 2000s, right? So it was very common to have a flat network. And then, basically there were like a lot of problematic viruses like Shamoon virus, which caused a lot of damage. So how did that work? In a flat network, if somebody gains initial access, it's very easy to infect one system. But then from that one system, if nothing else prevents lateral movement, okay, then it basically causes infection of the whole ecosystem of servers in that specific customer. So this is actually the first strategy of an attacker like this, right? Spread your malicious content in as many systems as possible, and then keep monitoring. The moment you have the whole infrastructure, the destruction phase can begin. Okay, so this destruction phase meant okay, they will wipe the master boot record, and then after a reboot, these servers are completely damaged, right? But that was not all, because the threat actor, they're also interested in reporting. So once all of this happened, there was actually a reporting capability going back to the threat actor, and then the threat actor had the capability to basically pull the switch and wipe the whole ecosystem. Very problematic. So back in the day, this actually caused many storage and hard drives to fail. It even caused the price of hard drives to go up globally because there was too much demand in a short time. Okay, luckily the protection strategies evolved, right? So from this flat network where one threat would have the capability to take down the whole network, technology evolved, and the first thing that happened was people started implementing horizontal segmentation, right? So instead of having one Ethernet or IP network, there are some other networks like SDH and MPLS-based systems and time division multiplexing systems, which allows you to basically, through one physical network, make different services. So that each service runs in a specific, each application runs in a specific swimming lane, which mainly means if you have a problem in one application, it will only be limited to one application. The other applications keeps working. Now, still losing one application might be problematic. So the best possible scenario is to implement horizontal and vertical segmentation together, right? So the smaller these segments, the more secure it is. So if you have a problem within one segment, it doesn't take down the whole network nor the whole application. Okay, good. This from a protection profile, it's much more interesting. But then from a business perspective, you have to be able to move payloads across these segments. So what do we do there? Well, there are air-gap technologies which come into play. Okay, these are systems like data diodes, cross-domain solutions, And there is a whole gamma in those technologies, right? It starts all the way from the dumb data diodes, which only transmit some layer 2 data, like a network tap from one network to the other, all the way to smart data diodes, which are active on all 7 layers of the OSI model, to the cross-domain solutions, which then in addition will basically also filter the data, which is crossing the security parameters, okay? And then the goal of a cross-domain solution is to filter so that only the known good data will be transmitted across the network perimeter. So these diodes are there. Let me give you one example of an optical data diode, how exactly that works. Since it's a QCTR, I can go nice and detailed in the technology. Okay, so let's look into this. So the optical data diodes, how does it work? So obviously we are protecting the network perimeter, which I call here the electronic security perimeter or airgap. So the intention of this airgap is to separate 2 networks. Depending on the industry, people call this high-low, OT, IT, secure, unsecure, trusted, untrusted. So it all comes down. You have 2 networks of different classifications, and you have to protect these networks against threats. One of those threats is, okay, if there is an attacker in the red network, let's say, they should never understand how the blue network looks like. So that is what they call a protocol break. What do we have here? Well, in this specific data diode, we have a blue server, which sits in the source network. It has a network interface card that participates normally in the source network. So you can route, you can send TCP, UDP to this network interface card. That all works. And then we have a red data diode server, which sits in the destination network. Again, this system has a normal network interface card so that it can send data to the servers in the destination network. Okay. Now, how does this communicate, and how do we enforce the one-way flow of data? Well, that is by implementing an optical data diode. The blue data diode server has an optical module, which is a transmit-only capability. The red server has a receive-only capability. Light can only flow from blue to red. There is physically no return path, no back channel, no nothing. So it's a completely one-way communication method protected in physics. Now, how do we implement that? Well, the implementation is basically the operating system is hardened, protect ourselves against operating system vulnerabilities. But then multi-factor authentication is also something which is making systems more rugged. So in this case, we implemented the 3-factor authentication. It is possible to log into the blue or the red server with a username and a password, fine, but that will only give you the monitoring data. Okay, so you can only see the data. Now, if you want to change the configuration of these data diode servers, there is a third method you need to add, which is the security dongle. So it means when the security dongle is in the system, you can reconfigure the configuration. If the dongle is not there, then basically we are only in monitoring only mode. So it's important to have 3-factor authentication. By doing all of this, we actually achieve a non-routable protocol break, right? So we're using a different protocol between the blue and the red side. There is no MAC address, no IP address on this link. We're using something else from the source network or to the destination network. Therefore, we are achieving 100% network confidentiality, and we are able to get these military-grade certifications like Common Criteria EL4+, hardened operating systems. These systems are on the NATO Information Assurance Product Catalog. So it's always interesting to find, if you are interested in finding air-gap technologies, you can always go and consult the NATO catalog. It has a whole selection of these technologies. Okay, so now the next level of detail, I'm going to zoom in on this optical link between the blue and the red side. How does this work? Well, we are using our own layer 2 frame, which is transmitted by the blue transmitter going into the red receiver. It's using MAC addresses, but our own proprietary MAC addresses to communicate. So how does this frame look? If you look in this diagram at the bottom of the slides, the transmitter is on the left, the receiver is on the right. The transmitter, the first light that comes out of it is this preamble and start frame delimiter. This is just a series of light pulses which indicate, hey, watch out, there is an Ethernet frame coming. Okay, then there is a gap. Then the actual Ethernet frame starts. First thing we get is the destination MAC address. Based on the destination MAC address, we can identify the packet load, the packet type, which is a payload packet. Second thing here is the source MAC address. So now we know that it comes from the blue data diode. This has to be 04. No other MAC address will be accepted. So it's a unique link between the blue and the red diode. We also indicate the frame type, and then the green part is the payload, which I will skip for now. I'll come back to that, because at the end of the frame, there is also something very important. If you send data one way across an air gap, the data integrity becomes also very important. You want to make sure that data received on the other end is fine, is correct. Okay, so how do we do that? I will explain the next slide. But the green part is our payload. It has a unique identifier. So since we are talking about a multi-service data diode, there has to be a unique identifier of each data stream. That is this first part in the payload. Then we have a software level CRC, the actual payload, and a sequence number, which allows us to send out the payload in sequence. Okay, good. Now, the data integrity part, how does that work? Well, first of all, we receive the payload, and then we calculate the CRC on the blue side, okay, of that payload. Then we transmit one way across the air gap, the payload to the red side, and we recalculate the CRC check based on the received payload. Next action is we compare the blue CRC and the red CRC. If they are equal, it means the payload reached correctly on the destination network. Okay, good. Now, obviously, that system that I just explained between the blue and the red side, it's not compatible with any standard protocol. So there has to be some smart software before and after to make this work. So let's do that. So in this example, we actually have two networks, right? TCP client will send data to a TCP server on the destination network. This in real world, how does it translate? On the right side, this might be a printer in IT. On the left side, this might be a laptop that wants to print something in OT. Okay, so let's start. So let's say we start the communication. First thing is the TCP client will open the TCP connection with the blue data diode. So on the blue data diode, there is a TCP server which opens the connection. Client sends a payload to the blue data diode, and then we close the connection. Okay, so this is part of that glue. So once the connection is closed, we basically cross-connect our payload into a channel. So we basically close the TCP connection, we take the payload out, we put it into a channel. So then this channel is used to identify the data in our layer 2 communication protocol between the blue and the red side. Okay. Payload moves across the air gap to the red side. The first action that the red side does is, let's compare if this data is received correctly. Yes. CRC is correct. Compare blue and red CRCs are equal. So we are sure that the payload reached correctly. Okay. Then we basically go to the next step, which means we remove our own proprietary header. So we take the payload again, and then we cross-connect this into an outgoing TCP connection. Okay, so there is again a cross-connect table on the red side, which moves the data from channel 1 into the outgoing TCP port. Then the red data diode opens the TCP connection in the destination network to the destination server, delivers the payload, and that's the full story. So in practice, we have 3 segments. Segment 1 from the client to the blue data diode, right? Where we use TCP. So it means if that traffic crosses a firewall or something else that might drop packets, no problem, because TCP allows for retransmission. So this way, TCP ensures that the payload reaches the blue data diode correctly. Then we are in the one-way communication segment. So it's important there that this is an optical connection over a short distance, and everything is in our own control. There is nothing else in the middle that can drop packets or corrupt the data. So we have a high-quality optical connection on a short distance. So the chance for bit errors is extremely low. Okay. Then that's segment 2, from blue to red. Ultimately, the third segment is from the red data diode to the destination TCP server, which is again a TCP connection. So if there is a WAN network or a connection to the cloud or something like that, from your red diode to the destination TCP server, which has packet loss. No problem. TCP overcomes that because there can be retransmission between the red diode and the destination TCP server. Okay, so this is the most simple diagram I can show you. So let's go into the full picture. Okay, so actually we're talking about multi-service data diodes. Okay, so sometimes security organizations, they like to put the blue server in one building and the red server in another building. So then this fiber cable between the two sides becomes a single point of failure. We can overcome that with having a second fiber. Okay, so this is useful in case of fiber breach. Let's say somebody cuts fiber A, no problem. We still have fiber B with all the data. It's also useful as an additional way of guaranteeing data integrity. Okay, in the unlikely event that the data received in fiber A has a mismatching CRC, then the data is not valid. But luckily, we have a second copy, which is coming via fiber B, and then we can use this to send it to the destination. Okay, so this is there. And one additional thing I can mention here is that also high availability is possible with 2 data diodes. Okay, you can achieve that. That would be taking too much of my time. If you want to learn more about that, contact me. I will be happy to explain more in that high availability scenario to you. Okay, now, so we talked about Shamoon, the problem. We spoke about how one optical data diode works in one-way direction. Now it's going to become in the new features. Okay, so this is really interesting because we're implementing a number of technologies combined. So we have this system which is called the back-to-back optical data diode pair. Okay, now you take the same optical diode, 2 sets. Okay, so 2 optical diodes. You have one optical diode in one direction, and then you connect the second data diode in the opposite direction. So now you have 2 one-way paths between 2 networks, right? So it means you have that. Okay, so now the next thing is, in some case, okay, there are 3 types of data. One of them is bidirectional communication. So in some cases, you absolutely need bidirectional communication. Now with this set, you can achieve that. So these are the purple blocks. You combine blue and red color, you get purple. So I gave it purple. So in this case, you can see here, okay, we have there, the goal is to initiate either a TCP or a UDP bidirectional connection. Okay, in this case, it's an example of a TCP connector. So we identify the TCP initiator here on the left side and the TCP terminator that's on the right bottom corner. So these blocks, they actually communicate via the data diode, right? So the initiator goes via the upper diode to the terminator. So now we have one connection. The terminator can communicate in the opposite direction via the second data diode to the initiator, right? Now, okay, and then if the TCP client wants to start communicating, it opens the TCP connection to the IP address of this left side blue diode to the logical TCP initiator block, right? So it's a defined TCP connection between the ephemeral port on the client and a TCP port, which is supported by this TCP initiator on that top upper blue diode. Once that connection is established, the terminator will also open the TCP connection to the TCP server on the right side, on the other network. So this is again a completely normal TCP connection because this TCP terminator is a TCP client with its own ephemeral port going to a TCP server on the destination network. So this means we can send data from the left to the right network, and the server can respond back via the second diode to receive the data in the source network. Okay, so this is so far so good. Now, we can also do this in the reverse direction. So the client can be on the right side, the server can be on the left side. It works with TCP, left to right, right to left, and also UDP can be done from left to right and right to left. Okay, so this is a very good story. And with this optical data diode pair, back-to-back connection, we can achieve 3 scenarios. One is one way out. In this example, OT to IT. We can have a SIM collector in OT sending data one way through the upper diode to the same connector in the right side. Now, if we want to have something like remote access, that can be configured using this bidirectional TCP capability. And at the same time, we can also send data in from IT to OT, and that mainly for patch updates and things like that. Now, since we have two individual data diodes, that's interesting because in a country, the national security level sometimes changes, right? So in normal operation, we could go for this kind of setup, no problem. In times of heightened security risk, people, they might go into monitoring only mode. So you can switch off the incoming direction and only allow the outgoing data diode. So now you're completely protected because you only have a way out for monitoring, yet you keep visibility, but you remove the attack surface this way. So it's a very flexible system. Okay, good. Next, one step more. So we have been talking with a number of clients, and the client is always right. Okay, so they came up with this. Okay, we have these government entities in a country, multiple sites. They are connected with dark fiber and encrypted traffic. Okay, so they liked the back-to-back data diode connectivity. So we implemented these back-to-back data diode sets on the network perimeter. But then the additional question came, how can we protect this data stream more? Okay, and then the new combination came to mind. Okay, so it's like if we implement network taps just behind this back-to-back data diodes, right, on the outgoing WAN connection, we put a transparent passive tap in there, right? So it copies the network traffic. We can feed that into our OPSWAT NDR, network detection and response capability, which will analyze the data streams and give them a security score from 1 being very secure to 10 being malicious, okay? So, okay, network detection and response. So how does the response capability work? Well, we have an out-of-band connection with these between the NDR and the back-to-back data diode pair. So whenever the NDR detects a malicious behavior in one of the sites, it can selectively switch off one of these services, right? And here it's also good to understand that it's not making the site blind, okay? So in some scenarios, if you shut down the whole system, okay, then you don't get any information in either. So there might be scenarios where it's important to get safety information into zone 7 here. So in this scenario, we can allow that. So data going in is allowed. We only disable this malicious threat actor in this case. So this is an out-of-band NDR solution which protects the data. The other way to make sure that files are clean. So there is also integration between these back-to-back diodes and an external scanning system, right? So we can do multi-scanning, content disarm and reconstruct, sandboxing, data leak prevention, AI detection systems, right? So the new detection platforms are aiming to validate if content is not AI generated. Okay, very good. So okay, right. So one more slide before I end my conversation here. So the NDR from our company is a little bit special because it's a bit traditional NDRs are like a smoke detector, right? It means smoke detector, you detect that there is fire, then you need to call the fire department. It takes some time before somebody can come and put out the fire. Before they are there, it might well be that your house is burned down. So instead of that, this NDR situation with back-to-back diodes is more like a automated sprinkler system, which is there, always ready to fight the fire. So the moment the fire touches the sprinkler, it will be annihilated by a splash of water. Okay, good. So thank you for your time and attention, and I will be happy to interact with you more. And if there are any questions, please feel free.
Thank you very much, Kris. A very interesting presentation. You make it seem like network segmentation and data dioding is very easy. That's good. It is probably much harder in real life than it is here on the slides. But thank you for that explanation. We do have a couple of questions. For some of these questions, I see that Michael Archimone has already answered most of it, which is nice. I don't know if he's somebody working for you or with you, but interesting answers here. A question I did like was, what if the CRC does not match, as it's a
Okay.
single way kind of thing? You know, red
Mm.
cannot really send.
Ah,
Again, does that then need the bidirectional diode that you talked about, or is there
aha.
something else?
You want a complete story? Okay, let's start. So it's a multi-layered strategy and depends a bit on the applications. So first of all, we do if it's one, the CRC is just to check if the copy arrives correctly on the red side. Okay. Second safeguard is we have a double fiber. Okay, so we have two copies of the data coming into the destination side. Now, maybe sometimes that's not enough because it might be that the destination server is down for maintenance, maybe 4 hours missing data. Now, there is also systems to overcome that, which is basically backfilling, okay, which means through the data diode, we send the actual value and continuously we send historical data, right? So if you switch off your server and you switch it on again, the moment the actual data hits the server, okay, no problem, you get the data. But the moment you hit the historical backfill, it will be your data gap, the missing data will be
Okay.
restored in your destination system.
All right. Thank
And
you very
then
much.
in combination with high availability, these systems are really robust. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that answer. We have now gotten to the last, to the time where we need to go to the
Ah,
next speaker. So thank you again, Kris. For the other questions, I'm sure you will stay around to answer them offline. Thanks again for the presentation.
with
And now
pleasure.
I would